Good afternoon, everyone. It's a privilege to come and talk to you today, especially after lunch and everyone's getting hot and sleepy. I am coming from the Adaptavist Group. For those who do not know who the Adaptavist Group are, we are a consultancy based out of London. We offer products and services, all with the aim to make work better. One of the things we do at the Adaptavist Group is a lot of research. So yes, we love our research because it helps our C-suite have great things to say, as Neal will account for. But it also helps us predict what kind of problems we'll have in the future, and to be able to anticipate the needs of our businesses so that we can support them through all their changes. Our latest research, which will come as no surprise, was on AI. But what was surprising for us is what came out of that research. We found a significant number of business leaders were incredibly frustrated. Not only were they frustrated with implementing the tools and services, but also in figuring out how to measure the impact of AI, not just with their people, but also the return on the investment that was being made. We also uncovered some troubling truths across the board, from leadership right down to your interns. A significant number of people tend to prioritize usability over security. And there is a growing divide in who is accessing training. So we found that it didn't matter your seniority level. Women were accessing training at considerably less rate, as were your entry levels, any person of color, all being denied access to meaningful training within AI. And why that's so crucial is that training really was the key to unlocking some of the success, to relieving some of those frustrations. And by meaningful training, we're talking about 20 plus hours. So that might come, thank you. So that might come from many, many micro learnings, as Laura will talk about later, but also a formalized, structured training that was relevant to your position. All of these things have then helped us to inform how we then talk to businesses about relieving some of the frustration they're experiencing. So today I'm lucky to be up here with three great people who are coming at this problem from very different spaces. First up, we have Laura Gemmell she's founder of Taught by Humans. Laura is redefining what it means to learn in the age of AI. She's helping teams build the confidence and skills they need to work with intelligent tools and hopefully not be intimidated by them. Joining her is Sven Peters, self-confessed AI evangelist. He is at Atlassian. Sven has been championing how AI can unlock creativity and productivity for years, and he's here to talk about Atlassian and how they are integrating AI platforms such as Rovo and bridging some of the gaps that businesses are struggling with. And finally, we have Neal. He joins me from the Adaptavist Group, co-founder of Saleable, one of the product arms of the Adaptavist Group, and our AI Innovation Lead. Neal works with everyone from startups to global enterprises and helps them cut through the noise, identifying real opportunities and how we can monetize them. So together we'll be diving into the human and strategic sides of AI and exploring how organizations can overcome their frustrations. And with that, I'm going to go straight to Neal with the latest research from the Adaptavist Group. We've uncovered a major fault line with AI, and there's a divide between what we're calling realists and skeptics. Can you summarize what you think is driving this divide?
I can. We joked about this. This was part of our double act earlier. First off, it was very interesting. So what we found was a dividing line between people who were identifying AI as something that they are skeptical about and something that they could trust and that realistically was making real change in their business, as we define it, skeptics and realists. The line that is between these two groups is what we've discovered is how this AI and how this technology is actually being introduced. So if you're coming in and saying, this technology is going to change everything, it's going to cut our costs, we don't need as many people, great, it's going to change the world. Those groups who have management or top-down sort of strategies coming in with this kind of AI practice, they always fail. And what they breed is a level of skepticism about how this technology actually works, because it's frankly missold. It's missold as a panacea, but it's also focusing on things that are not related to how the business operates. It's about how the business costs. So often you'll see this group coming in with things like, well, we are coming in and we don't need to hire any more people. What do you mean? You have AI now, just go on and get on with it and do the tasks that you were doing before, but with more AI involved. The other group, which I thought was really, really, really interesting in this dividing line, that this other group, the realist group, they had the same level of investment, which is to say the same monetary cost coming in, the same kind of help from on top. But in this group, what you find is a wealth of people who are going in and trying to go, okay, what are the things that our business actually does well? Where is the value stream? Where are we getting value with our customers? Okay, where can we start experimenting with some of these things? We don't know whether this technology works. And in this group, you find a lot of the kinds of approaches that say, you know what? One thing that may come out of this is we're not using AI. This may not be the tool that is. What you see in those groups is a monumental increase, not only in the trust that they have in this technology, but also the value that they're getting for their dollar. The amount of time that they are saving, the amount of throughput they're putting through whatever value stream they have in their organization. So I think when you look at that dividing line, to me, that realism and skepticism line all comes from how that technology is introduced and what the ground rules, what the assumptions are as you come in with this.
We'll come back to the innovation and the ring fencing shortly. But Laura, as you're working directly with the individuals, how are you finding the learning and collaboration with AI? And is leadership the challenge to bridging some of those skills gaps?
Yeah, so I think one of the things we're seeing is different companies have different cultures, and the culture coming from the top is what's feeding down. So what we say is you need to create a culture of experimentation. So you need to make it safe for people to fail. So not every single AI experiment that your staff run is going to work, but they need to know that that's okay and to not be stuck running the same experiments over and over again. An example actually from my own team is we tried to get AI to completely generate our AI newsletter. It didn't work. It kept making up links that didn't exist or bits of news that didn't exist. What we found works really well is as a team, we actually put all the links that we found in a week with a sentence, and then we use that to go into an AI and it organizes it for us. And it's still saving us about 4 hours a week, but we're still doing the work. But we could have been stuck trying to make this newsletter AI generator work, and we weren't. With the culture of experimentation as well, one of the things that you've already touched on is you really need to have guardrails in place. So with the companies that were realists, wasn't it also that they found that they had more data privacy training, and they also understood the boundaries within which they could actually operate within AI. So setting the guardrails as part of culture. And then also the biggest one is actually just sharing your failures. So let other teams in the business know what you've done wrong so they don't do the same thing. They actually also might have got it to work so they could tell you what they did. So it's more being collaborative, being able to experiment. And there is a bit of a skills gap. So not any training is good. I think there's a boundary of 20 hours of training is actually the best. Anyone who's had 20 hours of training is able to operate AI much better than anyone else. So that seems to be the boundary that you need to make sure minimum for all your staff.
Thank you, Laura. You spoke a little there about transparency, and with that, I'll come to Sven. So Atlassian is known for having a really good, transparent and collaborative approach to their tooling. And now with the introduction of Rovo, how are you finding AI is integrating into teams, and is the adoption rate better?
There are three things that I see when I think about adopting AI. And the first problem that people have is that the data that AI has access to is not good enough. I see that all the time. They have access maybe to one part of the data, but not the other one. And that doesn't help, right? AI needs context to give you good answers, to help you in your daily work. So if you don't have your data ready to be AI ready, then it won't help you. That's basically it. So what we are seeing, that's why we just like have a lot of connectors. So you can connect our technology to all kinds of other, like Google Docs or Slack or wherever you have information stored. So to help actually your employees to work better. The second thing that I think is a problem is that people think like AI is too intelligent, or like they're so much intelligent, and assume that it knows everything, right? By not giving it enough context. Like it's like a human that I know for years, right? But AI needs context also from your side. And then people are struggling with that. We're trying to find patterns there and put that into our tools. And the third thing is that this technology, people just like get thrown at, and then they see these possibilities are just like unimaginable. And that stops people from adopting it, basically, because they see, oh, what can I do with it? And then they got stuck, right? Because you can do so many things with it. So giving people guidance about what is working, you already said that, giving people guidance and sharing great practices, that's helping a lot. That's why we actually also give out-of-the-box agents. So people can just like use those agents out of the box and change them whenever they need to change it. So helping people actually to find those use cases that really helps them. That is helping with AI adoption. So I think these three problems that I see right now, and we're trying to tackle them, of course, in our products. But there's always the vendor people problem, right? I think it's both. It needs both, right? And the tools needs to be ready, and also the people needs to be ready and learn.
You touched on there about the kind of overpromise of AI. And one of the things we found in our research was the people who fell into the skeptic camp said that 67% said that they felt their AI claims were overinflated. And that was damaging the cultures. It was creating a fear, a risk of joblessness, which was a stark difference to only 10% of those who considered themselves AI realists having the same fears. So with that, how do leaders create psychological safety around AI and the implementation of the tools?
When the Gen AI explosion happened, we as an organization were very lucky. Our CTO had done AI before it was cool, which is the way he described it. He went to work university and he was studying machine learning and these kinds of researches. So when this thing came out, he knew the math. He knew what was going on. He knew underpinning how this worked. So we set up, first thing that we did to answer that question is we set up an innovation group, a group that sat at the leadership level, executive level. And daily we were meeting on what is going on, how are these things coming out, what do they do, what do they not do. One of the first things we found, and it was early research that was coming out, I can't remember who did it, might have been McKinsey. They had said that when they were surveying people in surveying groups, what were the things that were causing groups to not be skeptics, to not have that fear? One of the things that they said was organizations that have a HR department that is forward-looking and on top of what they're supposed to be doing and not just reacting, so a proactive HR group, those groups that were able to be fluid with job roles, to be able to quickly adapt to what these new technologies do, how they work, what the new responsibilities and what the new skills were going to be, and being ready with job descriptions that can be fluid and adapt to what these things were, saw a decrease in these kinds of things as well. So I think part of this answer comes to, at an executive level, you have to be well aware of how these technologies work, what they do, what they don't do, and you have to be ready for your organization to jiggle a little bit. You cannot be rigid. You cannot have, well, this job role has been here. The job description hasn't changed for 40 years. Why would it change now? We survived the dot-com crash. We hear that from people, right? They talk like this. These groups are suffering right now because what's happening is these new skills and these new technologies that don't fit into the old job roles, the jobs don't go away, they just change. The people are still there. The work is still there. In fact, with a lot of these technologies and a lot of industries that are adopting AI into the way that they work, the work is only increasing, right? The things that they can do now, the things that people are able to do, the work that can be coordinated is a lot higher. And so being able to be fluid and adapt, that's one way that you build psychological safety. The other thing is just, and it's a thing of Atlassian, we're a long time Atlassian partner, more than 15 years now. And one of the things that we love about Atlassian is their values. And one of the values that they have is about having an open company. And it's something in the ecosystem that we operate in that you will see a lot of vendors like us, consultancy partners like us, adopt this exact same approach. Being open in whatever you possibly can and making that the default behavior that you have helps people understand that you are thinking about their problem, that you are addressing their problem. And in cases where job roles need to change, organizational structure needs to change, that you are thinking about it and they are part of the conversation, which is to say they are aware, they can give feedback where that's possible and where that's valid. But you're not hiding in a boardroom coming out and go, aha, we have sat down and talked to ChatGPT and this is how our business is. No. This is not how this works.
We spoke to someone earlier from Microsoft and they were saying that they think about their consumers and then reflect that back internally. And I think one of the things we've found is, you've got to remember your staff and your people are a consumer of your goods, and you have to treat them with the same transparency and respect that you would an end user. Laura, you were about to jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say, I also think there's something around not like reveling in the fact that AI can cut you headcount. And that's something that a lot of companies are doing publicly and saying, oh, we're going to be able to cut 40% of our staff if we roll out all these AI agents. What do you think that does to the staff that currently work for you? Do you think that means they're going to want to use AI? We saw exactly the same thing about 10 years ago with robot automation. Companies were buying, and back then we were talking about automating factories and manufacturing and supply line and all of that. And there was companies that had spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on robots that weren't being used because the people who had to use them were like, you are training up this machine to take my job. We are just seeing exactly the same thing again with AI. If you set a company culture that use AI to do the bit of your job you don't like, and then you get to do the bit of your job you like more, you'll have happy, more productive employees. Your bottom line should be better anyway, but like stop reveling in the fact you're going to cut your headcount if they use AI.
We were talking about how AI is there to make work more meaningful. So we all have tasks in our day-to-day that you're just like, I'm sure a monkey could do this. And this is where AI can actually make work better for people. We spoke a little bit about experimentation. At the Adaptavist Group, we're very fortunate that we have quite loose parameters about what we're allowed to do. And so we see a lot of experiments, not all of which work. Neal, can you talk a little bit more about some of those projects and how do you encourage responsible experimentation?
The looseness is a really interesting one because at the time that the Gen AI explosion comes out, I'm operating as the group CIO of Adaptavist. So there's 1,000 employees, 300 of which are in the United Kingdom. I'm only in the United Kingdom at this point for better part of 3.5 years. The day that I take my job actually is pre-COVID. It's the first time GDPR comes into place. If anybody you've ever met has been a CIO when GDPR came out, please hug them. It was a terrible time. It's just the way it is. Now, for that, think about it. We have 1,000 people around the world who all speak a different language, have a different culture, have a different office, and most of our people are actually quite remote. And so they don't have this place. So for us, one of the ways that we were able to survive and grow as a company, and we acquired new businesses in the time of COVID, and I would say amongst our competitors, we were ahead of the game when it came to adopting some of these AI technologies, Atlassians and others. The way that we did this is from the outset, the culture of experimentation, that looseness was built in by design. So that's working with our CTO office and myself. What we did is we tried to find these places, these playgrounds where anyone could go. You can go in with data that was trusted and vetted. We're ISO and SOC certified. I think we have 2 or 3 German, certifications as well, one for automotive. And so for each one of these sets of constraints, it gave us a nice, very good set of rules. And we gave people places that they could go play. That's first and foremost. You need a playground. The second thing is your management, the people who are responsible for these people's day-to-day, you need to make sure that they have the time and the space to go do it, and that is part of their job role. It is written into job descriptions. It is part of the function, which is you do not necessarily need to vibe code a brand new blah, 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 but you need to be thinking about the way that your work happens, the way that your customers' work happens, and what we can be doing to grow as an organization. And what that meant when the Gen AI explosion came out is we opened up in AWS a bunch of different infrastructure that people could either log into and chat with if you're not technical, or if you were technical, we gave you the ability to go build some things, go try it. And it exploded. It absolutely took off. And the reasons why were we had these pockets of people who decided this was their passion project they were going to solve. This was the thing that they wanted to go work on. The first chat interface we actually released, which was, I think it was even pre-ChatGPT, now that I think about it. We released it in AWS and we allowed everybody to come in. What we said was, do not put anything in there that you do not want management to read, because we're going to have a look. We just want to see what people are using. So just so you're aware, if you're okay with it, whatever. That meant that not everybody used it, which is perfectly fine. The ones that did, we had a really, really surprising outcome. I don't know if you can guess. Can you guess what everybody had a problem with?
No.
Kubernetes.
Kubernetes.
A piece of technology that, unless you're really into this world, you would never know and you would never absolutely hear it. But it is a horrid piece of tech to run. Ask the Google people; they invented it.
It's also really hard to spell.
It's extremely hard to spell and run. And what ended up happening was we had a group of people who were trying to leverage this technology to take us one step closer to a big, audacious company goal. And they all sat as a group and they started working together. They went, oh, okay, I actually understand this topic. And as soon as these things start unlocking, we now have a platform that we've never been able to build in the 5 years before that accelerated. So this culture of experimentation it's a common phrase that you hear people say all the time. That is a hell of a lot of investment. So it's a lot of time and it's a lot of focus, but it requires you to have that place that people can play and allowing people to play together. I think that's the really, really important thing.
It's funny that you mentioned Kubernetes because we actually have a Kubernetes agent that we can ask questions to, because we have a knowledge base. We pointed to the knowledge base, and now we have a Kubernetes agent and you can answer. It answers all the questions that you have. And just like we have some experts there, but we don't bother them anymore, because we have this Kubernetes agent that can answer all these questions. And this is a great way also how you can adopt AI by having just like experts that are always the bottleneck, right? And you can not replace them, but you can. Wrong word, sorry. Scratch this from the video. You can just like have agents that can answer your the as let's say 70% of the questions or the problems that you have. An agent can just like answer you that questions. We actually have QA agents that write test plans now together with the developers. So we don't need a QA engineer coming in, having time, waiting, doing the test plans, and then we can test it and roll it out, right? But now we have an agent that just like helps you together with the developer that has also some knowledge about the feature that's going to be testing, and then they can write together the test plan. So it really helps with removing bottlenecks and moving faster.
I knew you'd be excited about Kubernetes. I knew it.
And I think what Sven meant, instead of replacing colleagues, it's about democratizing their knowledge. So they're not always on the phone fixing all of our problems. On that, Laura, what human factors would you say make or break some of this AI adoption?
I think the thing that makes people actually use any tech or anything is confidence rather than just skills. So having skills and knowledge means you know how to do it. Confidence means you can actually do it. And we found that kind of the step between skills and knowledge and confidence is actually letting people do, I'm going to echo the multiverse talk earlier, it's applied learning, right? You need to not learn in a vacuum away from your job. You need to be learning something you can actually do in your job. So if that's learning ChatGPT, rather than being like, follow this example for how you write a LinkedIn post, you only do that for the marketing team. The rest of the team need to learn how to actually do something that's relevant to their job. And I think one of the things that people are overlooking is that a lot of people are really scared of this technology. As a technologist, and probably as people in this room, we kind of know it's tech. We know it's a tool. We know it's not magic. It's not a magic wand that can do everything. Actually, one of the things we do in our training is like literally show people that it doesn't work sometimes, and that's good. It doesn't work. You are still the expert in this situation. You shouldn't be using it for things you cannot do. You should be using it for things you are good at to do better. So I can code. I can get Claude to write me new, I've forgotten the word for coding, things files, there we go. I can get Claude to build me a new feature or write me a new file really fast, because I can give it examples of stuff I've already done and because I can read it, if someone else who was maybe like a junior developer was doing that, they wouldn't know what was wrong with it. So I think one of the things is learning how to do this within the parameters of what you already know. If you randomly get it, so if I was to get it to write me a PR statement for our business, I'm not actually an expert in PR, so I wouldn't read it knowing if it was good or not. I'd just be like, cool, I didn't have to write this, awesome. But actually teaching people that you should be using this to do things you already know so that you're the expert so you can check it. I always say it's like a really smart, really keen intern. It can do the job. It needs lots of parameters, but every so often it kind of just goes off piste with like random stuff. So you got to rein it back in.
On that, Rovo is sort of being positioned as a bit of a AI teammate. Sven, how are you and the rest of the Atlassian team designing for trust? And what parameters are put in place so, as Laura was saying, you can test or qualitative the outputs it's giving you.
I mean, you need also to always to review the output of the AI, basically. So we become orchestras of those AI tools. So we will just like give it context, put input in, and then validate the output, and then go on. So there will always be, and that's why how we build Rovo. There's always be the human in the loop, and we think this is still necessary to do that, and probably also over time. But what we should realize is that, and we talked about that our roles will actually change, right? Software developers will probably write less code in the future. Legal people will probably review less contracts, right? And designers can now also design stuff and just create code from it. So we will see that the roles will actually blend a little bit, removing bottlenecks. I don't have to wait for a designer. I can ask an Atlassian design agent that we have to give me a decent design. I don't need to do that. So that's not the bottleneck. But we will need to realize, and if the job was always just to write code, that's not the job that's going to be still in the future. The role of the software developer, for example, is to build great features for the customer, to make the customer happy. That's still the case. That will still be the case. And we need to just like realize that this is actually where we are going. I also think like we need to tackle business problems, not just sandbox stuff. Try things out, try a prompt here, try a prompt there. We need to see where are those business problems and tackle those, and just also measure the impact that we have at the end, and not just think, okay, now we guess like I feel like I saved just like 3 hours per week, right? That's not that doesn't lead us to a real business outcome. So just trying to find that business problems, seeing if I can help with that, measure the impact, if it really does, or it just like feels like. I read stats that senior developers feel like when they use AI, in some cases are 20% slower, right? Right? Because they have to validate the code. We also did a survey and asked like, okay, developers, how much time do you save? And then developers say just like, oh, more than 4 hours per week, right? Which is great. At the same time, where do you spend your time that you save with? It's like, validating the code from the AI, which is like, you don't gain anything. So also here, just like find the business problem, find the measurements that really show the impact, and see if that really solves the problem, helps with adoption, and helps me also as a leader, but also me as an employee to really see, okay, this technology really helps me to drive more impact in my daily work.
When we talk about time savings as well, I think it's about redefining what ROI means. So when we did our research earlier this summer, we found that a lot of people who had the large quantity of training were saving quite a lot of time. I think we had a proportion of people saying it was something crazy like 36 hours a week saved. And you'd be like, okay, cool. What are you doing for that 36 hours? And one of the answers people were giving was more meaningful connection with colleagues, more time for L&D, more time for well-being. So actually start looking at your ROI more in your humans. So is your retention better? Are you seeing a decrease in sick days? Are you seeing more ideas and more collaboration coming out? Are your teams happier? And actually that could be a good enough ROI. So not everything needs to be super, productivity all the time. There's actually a lot of really incredible human benefits that are coming from some of this time saving when you're not having to cross-check your code. Laura, you spend a lot of time teaching people through your platform. What have you learned the most about unlocking some of these fears?
I think one of the biggest things is meeting people where they are. So there's ways to teach AI. For example, if people use Canva, they're already using AI. There's AI in Canva, rather than throwing in another tool to be like, go and make images in ChatGPT. Teaching them how to do AI stuff in tools they already use seems to be a really big winner. And also one of the things we found that works really well is people hate spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets. I'm not really sure what the hate on spreadsheets
What's
is.
wrong with you?
I don't know. Personality defect. I absolutely love spreadsheets. I plan my whole life in spreadsheets. But actually, one of the things that ChatGPT is really good at and other AI tools is helping you with spreadsheets. So being like, if you're stuck on a formula, you can ask ChatGPT. So we have all these tools. We get people to answer questions about what they already do in their day, and then we tailor the education to that. And that's way more useful than just being like, oh, learn this new tool that's going to interrupt your workflow. The other thing we find really impactful if we're doing like a big transformation project is actually asking people what they're trying to do. So I don't think that we want to use AI is a good enough reason to go and learn AI, right? Great. Obviously we get income if anybody comes and learns from us anyway, but usually you can be like, what do you want to do? And they can tell you. So one of them is like, we get too many customer support things in. We want to streamline that. Another one we've had is we have to write summaries of really long legal documents every single week. And that is great. You can write it down. Once you start writing it down, that's when actually a lot of it ends up being automation, not AI. And I do think one of my favorite things about this Gen AI wave is that actually automation has become cool again, and that actually automation is awesome, right? Automating things and just knowing the outcome is great. So a lot of the time when people want to use AI, they actually just want to automate a workflow, and it doesn't matter if there's AI in it or not, which we teach quite a lot. And actually that's a great way. And then suddenly they see this one bit where they need something personalized, and you're like, cool, that's the AI bit of this workflow. The rest of it is not AI. If you give everything to AI, it's not going to work. So yeah, I think we've also been teaching processes is one of the nice things that's come out of this. So teaching people how to think about processes and tasks, and it becomes a much bigger project than, oh, I want to learn ChatGPT. It's like, oh, I want to make the business better. I want to make my day-to-day better. And that's a much nicer thing to teach and to get people bought into than, oh, learn yet another tool that's kind of like spreadsheets, but like worse. I joke.
One of the things we have found is, as I mentioned, that people are not accessing training at the same rate. Are we at risk of people not understanding when they need automation instead of AI? But possibly more concerning, are we at risk of creating a kind of AI elite and creating a greater division, not just in the workplace, but across society?
The first round of the research that we did, and when it came out, that was the thing that frightened me the most, because the first thing that we saw was, if you are frankly not a white man of a certain tax bracket, that you were disproportionately affected. And from everything that we could see, there was no reason why that was true. It seemed to be institutional. It seemed to be an inherent bias. And so one of the first things that we did is we flipped around and said, okay, that's perfectly fine. We're putting out a bunch of a bunch of training internally. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to bridge that gap. We're going to take that gap seriously. And you give people the opportunity to self-train. It wasn't a required training, whatever, but you wanted to make sure that for those groups that did not necessarily feel comfortable, or were not being trained, or were not accessing these things the way that they need to, you needed to step up and fix that. I do not see enough organizations acting like that. And it's a hard problem. Like, I don't think it's one that I certainly want to be denigrating anyone who's struggling with this. There's a reason why the struggle exists, and it's because you have to stay on top of not just what the value of the training or what the value of the information that you're putting out is. You have to be very clear about what those pathways are and identifying blockages if they exist and removing them in a way that is also supportive and open and not forcing things down people's throat, right? What I will say on the AI elite question, I think a lot of that is inherently happening just by the sheer capability of these AI tools, not least of which to automate quickly, like you're talking about, but also the ability for these things to train individuals as they're sitting and using ChatGPT. I counted the other night with my wife the number of skills that I have now that I did not have 1 year ago, simply because I'm in the morning, I have an idea. I'm like, I don't know about this topic. I actually did it about the covered market across the street, because I'm walking around the street this morning and I'm going, oh, I've seen a covered market. I'm a marketplaces guy. That's what I do. Digital marketplaces is where I live, but physical ones, I'm into that too. And it turns out, does anyone know how that thing is across the street? Well, I do now. It's the Mile End Act of 17 whatever. And it turned out they kicked everybody off the street because it used to be that you go, okay, that stuff is now in my head, right?
It's Neal's first time in Oxford, everybody.
Sorry, I'm new to this part of the world. The reality is like, I think these hyper explosions of people's skill, ability, knowledge, working context, I think this just naturally happens anyway. And so I do believe that there is a problem. I also believe that in organizations of any significant size, we're 1,000 people, but we work with the largest organizations on the planet, right? All of these organizations are struggling with how to get these things out, get this technology into the hands across a large group, a lot of different verticals inside of these organizations, a lot of different job roles. By definition, you kind of have to make the ivory tower of innovation to start. But that's where a lot of people are stuck, because they've made the ivory tower. That in and of itself is expensive. They tried the first 5 experiments, they failed. So if you're a CFO and you're looking at that, what do you do? Well, you have to have trust that, well, the rest of the world seems to be taking off with AI. We must not have got it right yet. But this kind of innovation group approach is naturally inherently struggles with this kind of democratization problem, because what you try to do is you try to take the best and the brightest and the people who are adapting these things quickly, get them together. But if you cannot get that knowledge back out of that group, what you end up having is a group of people who talk to each other, which is fine. And you will get places and things will go good. Your business will grow, but it does not get the 20 hours a week into everyone's head. It does not get the value of these things into these different groups to determine whether this AI tech is useful to them or not.
I have a couple of points on this.
I'm not surprised.
Cool. So I actually have a PhD in teaching the public about artificial intelligence that I started in 2017 when literally nobody wanted to talk to me about it. I wish I was doing it now. You get so many people talking to you. But I actually sat in a park in Tottenham and tried to get people to talk to me about AI, which was a fun life experience. Mad props to my husband who sat with me just in case. We did live in Tottenham at the time, but we spoke to loads of people, and it was really great to hear. But even at that time, people were already talking about ivory towers and the only people feeling AI benefits were certain people. And I recently heard a quote, I think it was Rachel Caldecott, who said, making AI work for the 8 billion, not the 8 billionaires. And that's really stuck in my head as a really great quote of what we should be trying to do. And I think about this a lot because I am a woman who lives in the Southwest. I'm very into AI. And last year I realized I was on the steering committee for 4 groups in the Southwest, and me and one other woman were the token people rolled out to every single steering group, to every single event, to every single everything. And she's a friend of mine. I love being on a panel with her. We are very good at arguing on a panel politely. It's great fun. However, we were like, one, we actually can't go to all of the events, but also there must be more women in the Southwest doing AI stuff. So we set up a group called SWADE, which is Southwest and Wales Women in AI and Data. And one of the things we found from that group is this is like completely anecdotal, so please don't come at me. I think men don't ask for permission in the same way women do. And a lot of women were just not testing out these tools because they just didn't think they could. So what we do is we run lunch and learns, and people come and we say, let's try and do this. And it was like, and I was chatting to some of them and I was like, would your boss not let you do this on work time? And they were like, no idea, haven't asked. And I was like, cool, you need to learn how to just do things and like ask for forgiveness, not permission, as long as you're not doing anything ridiculous. So I think holding space for people who maybe aren't getting as much training and finding ways for them to get training outside of of work is really important. And I think one of the other things we see is that, like, again, if you're going to university at the minute, you're probably getting some AI training. If you're not in university and you're like 17, 18, or you're not going to university, how are we going to make sure they're getting the right jobs, the right training? How are we making sure the groups coming up behind us are actually getting, like, we're really worried about jobs, aren't we? How many times in the news is it that there's no more entry level jobs, and what are we going to do about people? But what is anyone actually doing about that? Are we making time to make sure people are getting training and doing things?
One of the things that surprised me the most in our research is that we found that your entry level and your interns, your Gen Zs in business, are actually some of the most fearful of AI, which really surprised me, because the previous year we'd done a separate piece of research in which they were thriving. It was about emoji usage. It will not surprise you. But why it surprises me is because we all think of the next generation being digital natives, but they have not been trained in it any more than we have. And the difference they have is they are coming from an environment where their parents or their teachers have been very anti-AI. They see it as lazy, they see it as shortcuts. And if your business is embracing it, you're at conflict because you are concerned that you will be in trouble for using it, that you don't know how to use it properly. Are you about to prove that they don't even need you? And so it's really important when you're looking at your different groups across your business is who is using it confidently, who is not openly using it, because that is different to someone who's not using it. And what can you do to start opening the conversation up? As Neal said, you don't want to make training mandatory, but you do want to make it accessible and not make people feel they have to ask for permission for it. It is there and it is encouraged and the time is given, because otherwise you are going to have a scary space out there because people will be using it without openly talking about it. And that's where risks start happening in the business. One of the things I wanted to highlight was, one of the things we found is it didn't matter whether people were investing the same amount in AI. Certain companies just saw better ROI, and it came from a better culture. But from those that didn't see the ROI, one of the things that came out was 74% of people felt that they were rolling out too much too fast. How do we answer this? To the floor.
Slowly. But the rollout of any technology, we were talking about this at coffee earlier. The rollout of any technology is one that affects human beings in a way that is very predictable, because we've been doing this for a very long time. And the problem with a lot of these AI technologies is they are too good, they are too fast, and they are rolling out and competing with each other at a level that is just absolutely insane. I was trying to go back, and I was actually asking, I can't remember, I might have been asking Claude. Anthropic's in the room somewhere, so let's say I was using Claude. I was trying to get Claude to do just the release history of just the LLM providers on their own. And it went 9 pages. They're like, I'm sorry, what kind of releases do you mean? Because there's point release. Oh, Jesus. And in my life, that has never been like that. And so I think there's a pace of technological change that is quickening, not least of which because a lot of these technologies are allowing developers to push faster. Therefore, you're getting to go to market faster, blah, 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 blah. But it's also, a lot of these technologies are a bit asymmetric, which is to say they come from a place of very, very different interaction than the way that someone would have used tech in the past, right? The ability to communicate with these things like a chatbot, everyone's been using chatbots since AOL. I'm outing myself, 1984 is when I'm born. So that's my thing, AIM. The reality is that chatbot thing is one thing. These AI technologies that are embedding themselves in Canva, Atlassian, all these other tools, they're a different skill set, and they're just a whole nother way of thinking about doing work. And as you start pushing on these things and they're growing quicker and quicker, it's not surprising that people are struggling with this. The answer to the question is, for us, obvious, because it's something that we do as a consultancy day in and day out. Rolling out change rolling out technology in a very safe, manageable, and approachable way helps you balance how these things are coming in, and frankly lets you ignore quite a lot of the things that are rolling out. The change management, which is a very overused term, but the change management of how you roll out any technology should be something that is very, very focused, very, very dedicated, and very, very intentional from the top is the easy answer. But I think a lot of these things also come from the play that we spoke on earlier and the top-down approach. Most people who we see who have problems with the change management aspect, it's being rolled down from the top. It's people going, this is the way we do things now. Deal with it. Tell us how it went. Most importantly, tell us, make sure we made our money back. That is one approach. That's the top-down approach. Organizations who adopt this experimentation first model, you have a different way of doing things where you go, here's your budget. You know what's going on the street. You have researched all these things. Go figure it out. Here's the constraints. Here's the place that you can play. Tell us what works. These are the problems that we as an organization are trying to challenge or trying to resolve. The other thing I'd say is linking up that strategy of your organization, the challenges you want to solve for customers, but also for yourself. Making it very clear which of these things your group should be focusing on and where you're trying to drive your value helps you line up behind a lot of these pretty significant initiatives and be able to break them down in a way where you pick the right tool for the right job at the right time.
Just I want to add to that, jumping up and down here on my chair. Sorry, because when we start with calling it technology, right? I've been running so many AI trainings or agent trainings in the last couple of months, and it's just like fascinating to see that some people approach it like, okay, it must be like a programming language, and I write my prompts like a programming language. But it's the first time in my life, my professional lifetime, that everyone can write prompts. Everyone can do that. It's the first time that it's so accessible. This technology is so accessible. And it's not that the best people that knows technology are also good with AI. It's the best people that actually can describe problems and taking a step-by-step approach. Instructors, these are great people to teach AI, right? I just think like we need to remove a little bit the term of it's a technology, and that's alienating a couple of people from adopting it, by showing what is really possible and then show them how easy it is to use that. And it's really, I mean, marketing people, legal people at Atlassian, our legal people write their own agents. And it's the first time that I've seen it, that actually those departments can actually automate things on their own without having the software developer as a bottleneck, by making processes, adding AI to processes. And somehow we need to crack that up, that it's super easy to use, it's accessible, everyone can write it, just like do it.
Just to add to that, one of the departments we've had the most success with is talent and HR. Like the stuff they are doing is just incredible. And it's somewhere that often you wouldn't think is going to super embrace this, a new tooling. Laura, we'll hear from you and then we'll go for questions from the floor.
I was going to say, we've actually accidentally made a product out of AI moving too fast. So we actually built a learning platform which had our like AI and data content and some like nice personalized learning chatbots. And our customers keep being like, well, can we just talk to your chatbot like it's ChatGPT? And I was like, I guess if that's what you want to do. So we now have a platform where people can just do all their AI stuff on our platform. And it's like, it was accidental. This wasn't what I actually set out to do. But they really like having one place. So instead of like, in my day, I dip between Claude and ChatGPT and Perplexity, not all customers want to do that. Sometimes I know like our platform's pretty in pink and nice to use and our chatbot's friendly. And people really like that. And again, having one place, one management dashboard, one everything, it's one wrapped up cost. They're not paying 3 different providers. We're paying Anthropic and OpenAI and everybody. So they're still getting money. It's just coming via us. And that seems to be working really, really well. So like we've got tools to role play roles. We've got tools to learn. We've got tools to ask your company knowledge database, write your policies all in the one place. So everything you might do on ChatGPT you can do with us. And this is like super accidental, and it's all come from the fear of having too many random tools, having to keep up with new releases. We actually do that for you. We ping you if we think you should switch models because we think it's going to be better for you. And that just seems to be working really well. So yeah, I think there's a real space for companies to innovate in like helping people not be overwhelmed with everything at the minute.
Great. Just adding to that before we, sorry, our most used agent at Atlassian is called Nora, New Atlassian onboarding agent. Yeah. And it basically is an HR agent. Our HR department wrote that. It's pointing to our processes, HR processes basically. And now we can ask Nora like, I'm sick, what should I do? And Nora knows that I'm in Germany, so it just like pulls out the German sick leave policies at Atlassian and says, oh, you have to do this and this and this. And it helps us, we calculated once, helps us save 5,000 hours from our HR people that would have answered that questions. And it was super simple to do this, and it's super accessible. It's the most used agent at Atlassian at the moment.
And with that, any questions? I don't know if we've got a mic.
I think there's a mic in the back.
I can also. Oh.
Here he comes.
I am American, so I can't speak out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I guess I have two questions. One is, where are you seeing the right type of adoption learning modules to help? Because I see the excuse, I just don't have the time. I'm really busy. I got a lot of BAU to do. I don't have time to learn in class. I have a family. I can't learn outside of class, right? So lots of excuses of why. But how do we get there? And then two, around your thing of moving too fast and software coming up, do you not think that the vendor, Atlassian, I'm kidding you, is also part of this problem? Because as a company who consumes Atlassian and we utilize Atlassian, we have no choice of the features that are coming out. And so you'll launch Rovo Atlassian and we launch Rovo, but we're not ready to roll that out across our company and do the training and the adoption for it. So it just sits out there in the wild, where maybe some people will have time, but it just doesn't get used. And then we might forget it because another software comes up and says, I have a new agent.
I can go on point one, and then I assume you're point two, the blessing. On types of learning, on learning, I think you got to understand different people learn differently. So I actually built a learning platform that had no videos on it because I hate videos. And then someone used it and was like, why don't you have any videos? And I was like, I didn't realize other people learned via videos because I would never watch a video to learn. It's just not how my brain works. We found people need a mix. So some people really like micro learning being delivered via Slack or via email in their place of work anyway, with a little tip on something to do that day. Other people are real consumers of knowledge and almost need to be given the permission to set 1 hour a week aside to sit and consume some knowledge. You need to have options, and I think that's one of the big issues with current workforce learning platforms is it's one or the other. You don't get to pick, and we're trying really hard to have multiple learning methods within the same thing because everybody learns differently. Also, people learn differently month to month. 1 month you might be into consuming a lot, the next month you might want micro learning, the next month you might want a month off because you're tired. So that's the best way to do it. In the most broad way you can do that, send a survey out to your staff and ask them how they learn things. Maybe some people like projects, some people like having a fire lit under them, so knowing they have to present back at an event of something they've learned means they'll go and learn something. So ask your people how they learn. Basically everybody knows how they learn because they've had to learn how to do it to pass school and stuff. So just ask.
Adding to that, you mentioned Rovo. We know that some companies are adopting it faster than other companies, and we roll it out to all our customers to be useful. But what we see is actually we see patterns through our 300,000 customers that we have, right? We can see patterns and then integrate that into your workflows already, integrating AI directly. That's one thing. That's a great because we have so many customers, we can see all where AI is used and where it's useful and where it's driving impact. So you will benefit from all of that. The second thing is we are investing heavily right now in designers and user experience designers. We know that maybe the chat box isn't the best user interface for interacting with AI for the future. Right now, we are all just like using the chat box and just like trying to teach AI or ask AI questions through the chat box. But in future, we will see much more different user experiences by using AI. And we're investing a lot in that because we as a vendor want people to use AI, right? That's just like we use all of these LLMs in the background, like, yeah, we mentioned them already. But we are the vendors that just like where people really have the interface. What the interface will look like in the future, I think no one knows. This technology is just like moving too fast, and we need to see what is the winning user experience that really makes the market. But let me tell you, we're investing a lot in that space because we think these are also the winning companies that have the best user experience with AI.
I think we've got time for one more question. I think, yeah, we've got the mic. Thank you.
Thank you for this panel. It's been really, really interesting. I wanted to go back to something you said at the beginning around data. What are you as Canvas seeing in terms of strategies for success or recipes for failure in companies' approaches to their data?
So many. What I would say, let's talk with failures first. The way that LLMs and other tools that are adjacent to these technologies, the way that they read text is not the way that human beings read text. And it's a very interesting thing about just because they're neural networks does not make them brains and does not make them brains attached to human beings. So the way that you're organizing and cataloging, and most importantly, the taxonomy of the information that you have today likely is not ready by default to be able to take on a lot of these technologies day one. However, one of the things that's very interesting about this tech is it's very good at unstructured data as well. It can take an unstructured bit of data, and if you give it a taxonomy, if you give it the structure of what you want this thing to do and how, frankly, your organization is, how your organization is shaped. You mentioned the HR example. We had a similar one where we have German entities, we have Austrian entities, we have Spanish entities. If you can tell these systems, if you can give it the context of what this actually is, the outcome that you get from these LLMs is just better. The other thing I'd say, and again, it's Atlassian, I think, do a very, very good job here of what they call the teamwork graph. The ability for you to link up these things together, link up these different disparate parts of your organization programmatically. And it could be as easy as labeling things correctly. It could be as easy as being slightly more explicit in the way that you're defining things inside of text inside of your organization. This could be everything from a wiki page to the way you're tracking work. Making those links helps these AI systems and the tools that they can live on top of be able to get you a much better outcome because it understands a bit more about the graph of how your organization works. So I'll give you a real example. One of the ones that we have, what's a good example? We use SiggyBot. Every single security question, if you ever send us a questionnaire, there's one nice little man in Iceland. He answers all of them. He's called Sigjorn. We call him Siggy. We built a very early AI system called SiggyBot, and the way SiggyBot works is it can take in any questionnaire, and it basically goes out into our ISMS, so the document we described about how our organization works, our ISO 27001, our SOC 2 Type 1 and Type 2 documents, and we structured this information. We broke this information down inside of our knowledge repositories, and we actually linked all of these things up to questions that we've received in the past. So we have an example of a question and an example of where specifically in the document you found an answer. By doing that, we were able to take any spreadsheet of anybody's question and answer about 90% of them. And the last 10% that come in, we told SiggyBot, if you don't know the answer, make sure you don't say you don't know the answer and say, I don't know in Swedish or in Icelandic. And essentially what happens is he goes through all the I don't knows. He goes, oh, I know what this is. He checks it and he builds that link. This is very, very, I'm from the knowledge-centered support group, so I'm KCS, right? So this is very, very old tech. This is very, very old process. But the fact is, if you can build this question and answer relationship of the information that you have, these tools are ridiculously good at finding where that information is, pulling out the information rather than trying to hallucinate it. So it's only pulling from the repository, not trying to recreate it from scratch. These kinds of methodologies really, really help a lot. The other thing I'd say is you don't know what your most valuable data is. I was really interesting to hear the keynote this morning where we're talking about NHS data, right? That's really fascinating to me. And I think the UK does have a unique opportunity, unlike other countries that I've ever lived in or was born in. But what I would say is there's a whole bunch of information that you have in your organization, I'm sure, that you have not even realized is powerful to these systems yet. And it's because it's probably not part of the core. It's not describing what your business is, who they are, who your customers are. It's ancillary metadata that can act as that connective tissue between two different topics that you have in your core. So anything that you can be using to walk that graph and make those relationships with the information that you have today, a lot of that is really powerful. I'm sure you have a lot. Go, babe.
I was going to say, I think the two cardinal sins with data at the minute are putting crap data into systems, garbage in, garbage out, right? So like bad data isn't getting anyone anywhere. The other one is being so scared of cleaning your data and your data being so bad that you just don't do anything. And so many companies are just doing that. They're like, our data isn't up to scratch. We'll just not use AI. But the way I would deal with that is pick one key, important but not too important bit of the business and sort the data out for that, find a process to do it, and then repeat across the business. And you define what good is, right? We can say we want 100% accurate data. I challenge anyone who claims their data is 100% accurate and 100% clean to come and show me it. I'm sure I could find something wrong with it, but you define what good is. Obviously, if you're doing something healthcare related, you need to have better data than like other people. But if it's like your backlog of marketing data, how good does that need to be to get insights from it? And if you're not aware of how these systems work, similar to what you were saying about the question and answer, it's something called a RAG system, so retrieval augmented generation. That's where the magic currently is. It will change in a couple of months. The new fad will be in. I'm joking. That does seem to be the backbone. So trying to get your data in a way that like a RAG system can use it, that's the secret sauce we're finding for knowledge databases at the minute.
And what I would say is it's not as scary as it seems. So I'm part of our brand and marketing team. We have 10 years of 6 different rebrands, I want to say. And our kind of backlog of assets, it was chaos with different file names. Just where do you even begin? And actually what we found is it's a lot kinder than you're anticipating. And actually it can be a lot easier, especially with using a little bit of AI to help you clean your data and help you decide what needs archiving, what needs to be migrated to a cleaner space. And actually you can make it a simpler task to clean up your data. Sven, did you have anything to add?
No, I think we just like you all covered it. I heard some customers are using AI to clean up their data, basically, to label it, to clean it up, and then let AI use that data. That is also a good practice, I think, that I've seen that companies are doing. But yeah,
with some humans checking it somewhere.
Of course.
Always.
The one thing I will say, and this might round this out a bit, is you also, one of the cardinal sins as well of any data organization is you come in and you go, I need my data needs to be clean. Okay, why? And why is a really important question. And if you can have that business question you want to solve, I think you're right about choosing a department and choosing like an area, because typically you can scope down the questions that those groups are going to ask and whatever. Come with those business questions, come with those challenges, and come with expected answers of what you think definitions of good would be. If you can narrow down that scope, a lot of these tools will just pick up and work. Yeah, I think that's a big one.
I think that's a good place for us to stop. So if you're interested in any of our research and data, we've actually popped it into your swag bags. So it's just a kind of high-level overview of some of our interesting research. More of it is on our website, theadaptavistsgroup.com. We are around all afternoon, so if you have any other questions, please come and grab one of us. But thank you.
Thank you all.